You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another episode of OverAnalyzing, the series where I take a more in-depth look at the fictional universes which I love. Today I'm diving back into Red Dwarf, which is what I covered in the first 3 episodes of OverAnalyzing, and today I've got sort of a theory. This theory is based solely on one episode, and a couple others kind of tie it together, so here goes. You already know what I'm talking about if you've read the title of the video, but let me explain what I mean by Is Kryten Dead? Crichton is a main character in Red Dwarf that joined the cast in Series 2, but didn't become a main character until Series 3, although the actor was different in Series 2 than it was in Series 3 and up. And that's for the better because Robert Llewellyn is a much funnier Crichton than David Ross, but regardless. Crichton has what are called spare heads. There's Sparehead 1, Sparehead 2, and Sparehead 3, who has droid rot. In the episode DNA, where they're first introduced, they're each shown to have their own consciousness, as if they're a separate character. Because of that, it would lead me to believe that the original Crichton is the one in his normal head, and his spare heads are separate Crichtons that have different consciousnesses and different memories. Because of that, there is an issue that arises in the Series 7 episode, Beyond a Joke. A great episode as it explores Crichton's origin a bit, and makes a lot of good humor with Crichton being sort of neurotic and crazy. It also introduces us to Crichton's quote-unquote brother, Abel, who is also a Series 4000 mechanoid. In this episode, Crichton's head explodes because his negative emotions took over and caused his head to explode. They also go through all 3 of his spare heads, before getting some more heads from some simulants later on. Although it turns out the simulants ripped him off and put a head on Crichton anyway that they already had. Because of that, Crichton is revived, yes, but with the different heads having different consciousnesses, is this the same Crichton? One would assume so, simply because he does have the same memories, but perhaps his memory and personality are stored in separate parts of his body. Is this the same Crichton, or is this a shell of his original self, somewhat similar to Rimmer, because obviously the original Rimmer died and became a hologram. Then the original Rimmer got revived, presumably died and became a hologram again. Though, with that we'd have to know exactly how the cliffhanger resolved. But regardless, back to Crichton. If this is the case, is this the original Crichton? Or did the original Crichton die between Series 2 and 3? Because, to be fair, Lister found Crichton in a wreck and basically rebuilt him. Did that include reprogramming him and giving him a new set of memories? One would assume so, simply because he's a different actor, has a completely different personality, and is much more entertaining. At the same time, is this simply a matter of Lister being incompetent at putting him back together? Or is it that the original Crichton in Series 2 was the original head, and the Crichton that we see in Series 3 and up is Sparehead 1, at least the original Sparehead 1, before they put the other Spareheads on? We've seen that Sparehead 2 is a separate character from Crichton even further in the episode Ticket a Ride. In Ticket a Ride, Lister puts Sparehead 2 on Crichton and removes his guilt chip, so that he's able to break his programming. Sparehead 2 says he's going to be going behind Crichton's back, which of course shows, again, that the Spareheads have different consciousnesses. Not to mention, at the end of the episode, Lister said, "That's not Crichton, that's Sparehead 2. So again, I pose the question, is Crichton dead? I think he might be. I think his memories may have just been restored from his memory banks, which are presumably stored somewhere other than his head, so as to be able to be consistent with his spare heads, although he is now a separate consciousness. Again, this is me looking deeper into it than I'm sure that Rob Grant and Doug Naylor would have ever intended, although Doug Naylor is primarily the one in charge of this because Rob Grant left the show after Series 6. Plus, Rob Grant, I believe, wasn't actually that keen on putting a robot in the show to begin with. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. That being said, can this be considered the same Crichton? Or is this a different character? How exactly does a mechanoid's personality and consciousness work? These are questions that can't really be answered, but I do think it's a good chance Crichton is dead and is now, in a way, a recreation of his former self with his previous memories, but a separate consciousness and a separate character, which could explain why he acts somewhat differently than he used to. Although with that in mind, he has been developing these differences over the course since Series 3. It's not like his difference in personality came out of nowhere, so again, that might be a moot point. Not to mention, he doesn't change too much after Beyond a Joke. If anything, he's just consistently evolving as a character as he has been since Series 3. But again, I do think the original Crichton could very well be dead, and this is a spare head that they got from the simulants, because Crichton and all of his spare heads died in Beyond a Joke. These are my thoughts on Crichton as he stands. Again, this isn't a series that is super focused on continuity, so such a thing wouldn't really typically be explained in-universe because I don't think the writers really care. But it's something I thought about. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. But this has been Fugitive Red-Eye. Let me know in the comments if you agreed with me, if you disagree. And as always, have a great day.